Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Lightsabers, Blasters, and Droids with Kat and Steve. My name is Steve. That is Kat. Today we're doing the Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 3, The Convert. We'll touch on that. This is the longest episode, I think, in the entire series. I might have to get fact checked on that, but I believe it's the longest one we've gotten in the series so far. A very interesting episode this week. It seemed to me like it almost felt like a backdoor pilot, with bookend. So we get kind of a bookend, and then in the middle we get this backdoor pilot almost for a show that doesn't exist, but that's kind of how it felt to me. So, but I'm sure we'll really get into that here in a bit.
I kind of felt it was the opposite. That I didn't feel that was a backdoor pilot. I felt that was closing the book on one of the storylines and one of the characters, who I don't think we'll see again.
Right.
We might, but we'll see. We'll see. And
Yeah.
then, and as many have said, it's like an episode of Andor with a prologue and epilogues about in the Mandalorian. So
yeah, it was. Well, I think Andor, just because of the pacing, right? So the pacing was weird because of the middle was very deliberate,
yeah, it's really jarring how
slow,
they did that.
right?
And it isn't exactly appropriate either, because obviously Din and Bo-Katan were not in hyperspace that long, as you see as it cuts away. So there's like dealing with time jumps and stuff there.
Yeah. So I mean, it's hard to tell from this episode actually when all this is happening, because they're hard cuts. So it's bookend, but it never gives you the feeling, or at least it didn't give me the feeling that this was happening at the same exact time. This could have been happening anytime.
Right.
It doesn't really give a frame of reference for the timing. So that's interesting.
Situation where things are time jumped again, because in the first episode of season 3, Grief Karga mentions that Cara Dune got promoted because of Gideon's capture, but he doesn't mention anything about Gideon's escape, which he probably would have if that had happened at that time. And now here we are in the third episode, and it's quite obvious that what's going on Kalava is directly related to Moff Gideon, and then obviously what's going on in Coruscant is directly related to that as well. So it's like sometime between the first episode and the third episode, he got away and started initiating his own stuff, but it didn't seem like much time passed between the first episode and the third. So it's kind of sort of like how the amount of time that passed between the Book of Boba Fett and the season 3 just doesn't seem appropriate. Like a couple years ago, it's like kind of they're playing around with that a bit much.
They are a little bit. So we finally tug on that thread that was introduced in season 1 of Dr. Pershing. Pershing. Dr. Pershing, the cloning expert scientist. And basically, and that's why, I didn't agree with people saying, oh, it's a filler episode. Well, first of all, you don't know that yet. And it didn't feel like filler because we're actually, we went back and grabbed a thread from the first season. And I think it's going to link to the kind of the overarching storytelling.
I thought it was very clearly connected directly with the Gideon storyline and continuing that. I've heard people on the internet in the last 12 hours talking about all the different theories. It's like there's really only one theory, and that seems to be more often than not what's most obvious is going to be true.
Right?
Episodes. Yeah. So it's kind of clear what's actually going on. So
I'm still not sure how I feel about the episode. I liked it. I'll put it that way. I did like it. Obviously, so we'll go through. I got slides, so we'll go through the episode, but kind of briefly, we got space battles, which was cool. This middle part that everybody says is kind of like Andor. They say that because I think of the pacing. It's a slow burn type of storytelling.
It does feel very much like Andor in that sense, because they're spending a lot of time on characters. There's a lot of padding. It's neat to see that stuff. Granted,
yeah.
given the type of show The Mandalorian has been and how zippy it's been, it's like this was a notable radical departure. And instead, I'm not really feeling that great about it because there's still key questions about Dr. Pershing that they don't answer. So you spent nearly an hour with this guy, and there's still all of these blank, empty, which was kind of frustrating. And I don't necessarily think it's great simply because it's longer. Like, I've always been the person that says, hey, let the episodes be as long as they need to be.
Right.
And I didn't feel that given the way his storyline parses out that it needed to be nearly 40, like roughly 45 minutes or 40 minutes of the episode on just him.
Yeah, I think they could have cut that. They could have cut that down. I think they knew what they wanted to say, but I just think it could have been edited better. It could have been cut down, and things repeat a little bit. I know what they're going for, though. You're kind of, and we'll get into it with the slides. You can tell there's some repeating parts when he's, with the counselor droid and shit like that. So, okay. But overall, so like I said, I still don't know how I feel about it overall. I think it might be the best episode I've seen this season, though, because there's stuff like we said, the first episode I didn't care for all that much, but it was like a check-in episode. The second episode I really did like. There's a lot of cool stuff in it. So I don't know. Maybe the second. It's right there. I have to digest it a little more. Usually, we do the show on Fridays, and I have a few days and a couple of watches, to really make my mind up. But this one, it was interesting, and I think I do like that kind of storytelling. I like the Andor style of storytelling, so it works for me personally. But I don't know how it works in the show yet, and maybe it'll pay off later on, and we'll look back and say, oh, well, that was perfect. But for now, I don't know, man. I think there's two, as always, almost always in Star Wars nowadays, there's two different camps, and they're pretty clearly divided. I think, I just don't know that the pacing and that type of storytelling is.
It doesn't.
It's not Mandalorian. It's not the Mandalorian, right? It hasn't been so far. So it's almost like they jam two things together.
The first two episodes were so Mandalorian-like, and this one was just like, let's take a little bit of the Andor flavor and put it in here, but strangely not answer any of the questions about this character that have been raised. But we're gonna somehow find a way to spend 40 minutes with him anyway.
Yeah.
And overall, it kind of feels like I've always advocated that they should do a Star Wars anthology series where it's just 45 minutes to an hour of just something taking place somewhere in the Star Wars universe, and it doesn't have to connect to anything. Just let it be its own story. And this does that with like post-war parallels with the denazification programs and the other post-war parallels from World War I with the League of Nations demilitarizing everything and just throwing everything away like morons. And it's like, okay, that's really interesting. And you got the references to things like Blade Runner 2049 with the whole interlinked thing, and that's really cool. But I didn't feel that they needed to necessarily spend 40 minutes because when you get to the big twist, I didn't feel the relationship between Pershing and Kane was strong enough for me to really care about. The betrayal in the end. It's like, okay. It's like, but then I felt the same way about Andor when they had those nearly 2 full episodes of just him hanging out with the crew that he's going to rob the facility with, and then most of them die. And I didn't really feel much for them either. So it's like, okay, you spent these extra episodes with them, but did I really feel like I needed it? No, not really. And I kind of feel the same way with Pershing and Kane in this one.
I mean, I felt the betrayal, but I mean, it wasn't one of those, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. It's pretty well telegraphed from the very beginning of the episode. So it's coming, but it's still, so I felt it a bit there. I'm like, this sucks. It sucks for this guy. And then I feel like, man, you should have known you were being set up, dude. But I guess we'll get there here in a minute. So shall we go through some slides and kind of go through the episode? So the episode starts, right where we left off last episode, having Din having just been rescued from the depths of the living waters. I think it's the living waters underneath Mandalore by Bo-Katan. So that's where we're there. And then they they decide it's time to get the hell out of there. Get back in this. I love her ship, by the way.
Yeah,
this is a dope ship. Anyways, great ship. And they're off into space, and You know, mommy and daddy and baby Yoda. Nice. So they,
Favorite type of TIE fighter there.
they get attacked, and they're coming in hot, and they don't know where these TIE interceptors are coming from. So they're trying to figure that out and getting shot at. And because they're together, and they don't, and later on in the episode, they don't need to be narratively. So we get a Din's going to jump out and get into his Naboo starfighter, which he does. Gets out, gets in there. This is all really cool. I thought the bookends are really well done. I thought.
Yeah, I thought it was also interesting that they make the point that Din Djarin didn't see the mythosaur.
Right. Yeah, that is interesting because she asks him. So yeah, we kind of flip right past that, but in the beginning she asked if he saw anything down there. He's like, no.
Right, and it's kind of neat that I like that they're not having him see that, because if she were to tell him, then he would be insufferable for her to go on about all that kind of thing. So she's like, no, I'm going to keep this to myself.
Right.
Till she knows what to think about it.
Yeah, because I don't think she really gets it yet either. Right? No. She understands what to think about it. So that was good. I like that part. And then we get good space battles. True to Mandalorian stuff, and not space battles just for space battles, obviously. And then we get some cool ship maneuvering. Bo does this really cool maneuver with her ship, and they gun them down together. They fight together, and they blast all the TIE interceptors.
Yeah, I don't know about you. I do notice that the CG in this isn't as good as the CG in the movies. I know the new movies haven't had much space battles and stuff, but I noticed that it looks better in the movies than it does here. Because they haven't really done most big starfighter stuff in the Mandalorian series, but each time they do, I feel like it's a little. It's like I can kind of see that it's a bit like there's something off about it. I don't know if it's just me.
Yeah, well, and then you're talking about two different budgets too. Although these budgets are high for for streaming television, there's still way lower budgets than a movie. Yeah. So that might be it. It also might be just the strain of the VFX community right now is just completely overworked. So that might play a part in it as well. But I agree with that. It's not as good obviously as the movies, but I didn't think it was completely horrible either though. And some of the dog fighting is in that we're doing right here. It was really well shot.
And this whole thing, I figured, because she noticed that there's too many fighters here, just kind of bizarre. It's like clearly this is a Moff Gideon thing, because she's the one who was there to capture him, and he's not going to take any of that shit.
Yeah, right. So meanwhile, while they're doing the dog fighting, their TIE bombers are just bombing the crap out of her castle here that she's called home here for a while.
Yeah.
And she's hell bent to go get these bombers because there's only 2 or 3 of them. She gets one of them, and then Din's like, "Hey, look at the scope. There's way too many. We got to hightail it out of here."
Yeah.
And they're flooding the zone, so they hit hyperspace, and that is the beginning of the episode. That's how we get into the episode.
A really great cold open.
Yeah, I thought it was really good.
And I like how this title is like a double entendre, because it could refer to Bo-Katan, and it could also refer to Dr. Pershing, and even the Kane character, sort of, until you see where it's going.
Right. The convert. And yeah. So it could be yeah. I mean, Din is a convert. Bo at the end could kind of be a convert, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of there's all double or triple meaning there, or it could be anyways. So that part of so that part of it's over, and we get into Coruscant. We're right here at Coruscant, which is beautiful, by the way. I thought the way that the way we see Coruscant in this episode is really well done.
That's the same opera house from Revenge of the Sith as well, 'cause that's the same angle of the shot.
Exactly. In fact, I think I got the steps. Yeah. So I mean, it looks like the same exact steps, in from the movie.
Yeah.
So we get into the opera house, and this guy's and Pershing.
Yeah, Dr. Penn Pershing.
Penn Pershing. He's given a speech about his work, and
the benefits of cloning and how you can like grow organs to replace bad ones for other people. And it's like he mentions that his work was co-opted by evil people, being of course Moff Gideon, but it's still not clear how much does he know about what the project was. I'm guessing from the way we see his personality throughout this episode that he didn't know what the end game was, because we've already been clued into what they were doing in season 2 when we see the Snoke vats and they played Snoke's music, and it's like, okay, we can see where this is going, but it seems like Dr. Pershing, who obviously was in on it, because you see the hologram play of him in season 2, the hologram recording, that this was going on, and yet he doesn't seem concerned to tell anybody about this. He just alludes to that it was being used. So while I was watching this episode, I wasn't entirely sure if he was a good guy yet, because it's like, I'm not really sure if I should trust you, because he obviously hasn't told the New Republic what he was working on.
Right, and I don't think he's a good guy or a complete villain either.
Yeah, he's in the middle.
Yeah, he's just kind of. I think he has a life's mission.
Yeah,
and at first the Empire obviously co-opted him and his research before he knew to the extent that was going to go, and so by the time he realized what's going on, it's too late. You're
he had a bit of a sympathetic personality in even the first season.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's the one who saved the kid because he's like, no, they were going to kill him. I tried to save him. Blah blah blah. Even though it seemed to me like they would want to keep the kid alive for the experiment, but he's like, no, they were going to kill him. I'm like, okay. But yeah, he's basically, and you can tell in this speech that he's not just, he's trying to earn their investors to keep this going.
Right.
Like you see with these obnoxious people just sucking up to him after the.
That was a great part. I don't think I pulled a slide of that. I should have. You got this Mon Calamari who's gold. The skin tone's all gold, and they're just lapping praise on the guy, and they're just swarmy.
Or the guy who mistakes that. Oh, Empire. Oh, she's like, that was the Empire. Oh, Empire, Rebellion, New Republic. I can't keep track. I'm like, God, how privileged and how stuck up are you?
Totally. It just, and it reminded me of the type of people that would be in that casino on Canto Bight.
Right.
And I know a lot of people don't like that movie, but yeah, it's too bad for you. So he, he's given the speech, and then he comes back to his dormitory, because they're still not completely reintegrated into the society. In fact, they have numbers.
Yeah, that was crazy. They don't know their names. They got the serial numbers like inmates, and they're even wearing what alludes to like prison jumpsuits. And it's like, okay, so on the one hand, you give them relatively nice quarters, but they're not locked up.
Right.
But it's still really weird.
Yeah, so it's basically like here's where you can go, right? And here's what's off limits, and so it's weird. Here's where you're going to stay until you're completely reintegrated into polite society, which is weird. But Star Wars is always drawn from the World War II, World War I, especially World War II kind of references.
Right.
And it's very heavily felt in.
And this is also where he kind of unintentionally gives away the fact that she used to work for Gideon, and that gets the other three looking at her sideways, because it's like, on the one hand, they're still deemed to be imperial enough that they need to go through this denazification thing, but they're not that evil. And they're like, whoa, you worked for him. and she's kind of like, whoa, and they have this neat bonding thing, like, what do you miss about it? And Pershing just starts going into ball. He's like, no, dude. What do you miss about the day-to-day? And when he mentions that he misses the biscuits, they're like laughing at him, and it's like, dude, why do you want to miss those fucking things?
Right.
I liked that, because that was kind of seeing a more down-to-earth, relatable side, because usually in the Empire, the most people you see are like stormtroopers and stuff.
Yeah.
You don't get to see, or in Andor, you see if they're super corporate, ISB types. You don't get to see like regular grunt workers.
Regular workers, or a scientist, or it's very rare. So it's cool. So we got that part, and this is where they're kind of talking back and forth, and then we see him at work, very reminiscent of Andor in this, or in this sense, because in Andor it's actually I can't remember what the names of.
Yeah, it's the same. It looks like it might be the same office.
It's the same,
sort
right?
of. It's slightly different, but it's the same type of layout and cubicle.
Really close to the same kind of office that you see in Andor. But he's just basically a data entry guy. Just doing data entry and stuff. So
during that job at the place, we find out that he's like, just because the technology is imperial doesn't mean we have to destroy it. We can recycle it. Because we can't do that. And you're disassembling the rebellion's military. And granted, I get there's a New Republic military, but the idea that you're throwing everything away, and rather than repurposing it and saving it, and the coworker is like, well, you could file a request with management, but they would never let somebody like you, a person in the in the amnesty program do it. And it's like, I like that they're focusing on just how asinine the bureaucracy is.
Yeah, for sure.
You could tell that he's really bothered by it, but it's kind of
because I think because ultimately he doesn't want to throw away his life's work. He wants to continue.
Right.
And that's just it's just more pile on to say, that tells him that he needs to figure out a way to keep going, instead of just basically throwing everything away. So she convinces him to go out and see the sites on Coruscant, and they have these, I don't know what the hell those are, some kind of light up lollipops. Yeah,
that was kind of neat, because it's like, I'm like, is that? Because at first I wasn't sure they were lollipops. So I was kind of entrenched by their conversation, and then it's like, what?
Right.
And he's bonding with her type of thing, and this rock, I believe we've seen it in Clone Wars. I know I've heard about it before.
I think so too, but I did. So what we learned, which I love about these shows, and why I like these shows, and getting more about the mythos and the lore of Star Wars or any show, but we learned that this is the highest peak on Coruscant. So it's the peak of the tallest or highest mountain on Coruscant, which I thought was awesome. It was a great kind of centerpiece. And it's something that you'd probably show a friend, right? If if this is where you live, this is, one of the things you'd show them. So I thought that was cool. But this is, this bonding part, because, ultimately
go up there and touch it. Really? This isn't the Empire. And I like that line. Like, this isn't the Empire. That was funny. And then, but they get zapped, and I know, and notice that when they're out in public, their clothing is a bit. It's still a uniform, but it's not as not as inmate-y as the one that they're going to the apartment complex. And he's also been receiving boxes of those biscuits. Yeah, he doesn't know who they're from, but he likes it.
Yeah, and we assume. I mean, nobody ever knows, but we assume that it's her.
Well, she does confirm it when.
Oh, does she?
Wait, because when they board the train to go find the
okay, that's right.
Stuff, he's like, how do you know this is there? She's like, well, where did you think the biscuits came from?
Right. So so they're hanging out and bonding, and then they hang out some more. Here, I'm just I didn't get every 10 seconds of clip, just because a lot of this is just long kind of storytelling. It's them just talking and trying to get to know each other, and she's trying to kind of convince him to continue his work, and you don't have to You don't have to just give it up. And so she's prodding him a bit, and he's really starting to think like, man, this is maybe like what would I need to continue? And I think she asks him here like, what would you need? And he says, a mobile lab.
This is great. I noticed how the New Republic has actually adapted the Rebellion's logo.
Right.
You see that in a lot of places. Like it's on the Bane building and for the embassy building in blue and yellow, and now it's in here. And the whole totally taken from Blade Runner 2049. It's like I wanted them to say interlinks just to say it.
Right. I know. So this is the if you can't tell, this is the counselor droid. And just asking them, the same questions, do you feel angry? It's pretty asinine questions, but, do you feel anger for this? Do you feel, anger for that?
Resentment or any...
Or you feel resentment? Yeah.
All that kind of crap.
I'm like, yeah, whatever. But it was, the scene is really cool. And,
yeah, we get the idea behind it. And I do find it funny that they're trusting a robot because there's no indication that the robot is reading his emotions and noticing that he...
No.
Might be feeling misgivings about it, which makes the questions kind of null and void. It's like, well, it doesn't really mean anything if they're not. Because the thing in 2049, when the robot reads them, he can read all of his facial interactions, can totally read. Whereas this case, that's not going on.
It seems to me that they don't really care about it, truth or accuracy or any of that. They just care about the answers. As long as the answers are good, all right, get next.
Yeah,
which is weird, but okay. So he back at the office, and this is kind of. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had one other one. So this is where Kat was talking about. The guy comes and kind of tells him he wants to petition to kind of save some of this stuff, and the only guy that seems to talk to him, the guy who brings him work, is like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. So he's fed up. He does the counseling thing a couple of times, and decides that he's going to come to. Her name is Kane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elia Kane.
Yeah. So he comes to Kane and is like, all right, let's friggin' do it. Let's go wherever we have to go to get this mobile lab so I can continue my experiments or my work. So that's what they do. They get dressed up. They go out. Go to the train station, which is all. I mean, you can tell by the scope. It was really well done. It was really well shot.
Yeah,
we spent a lot of time. A lot of time. It's slow. It's kind of a slow burn in this middle 45 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
But we get really good shots, and it's really well acted. The performances are great. It's just
kind of neat that we're seeing what life is like, because this is the first time we've been back to Coruscant really since the prequels.
Right. And we get a kind of a glimpse at how at least the beginnings of the New Republic are, and it kind of reminds you of the old like almost the Empire. Like, yes, things are different. You're not ruled with an iron fist. But you can also see there's crippling bureaucracy there, and they're still doing things. I don't know. Maybe it just seems,
Well, there's point. Yeah, you can see that the
new boss same as the old boss almost.
Yeah. It's not really competent. It's just based on this knee-jerk reaction to anything Empire is evil. We can't reincorporate what works versus what doesn't.
Yeah.
Ignorant to the fact that a lot of worlds which joined the Empire did so happily and actually improved as a result of being belonging to the Empire. And let's just pretend it doesn't exist and sweep it under the rug and destroy and all that kind of thing.
Right. So there's a little more bonding that happens. Obviously, they're on the train. They and they're going, kind of to the outskirts to where they have taken, starships and Empires, Star Destroyers and other ships to start decommissioning and getting rid of them. So they skip the line, so they don't actually, because they can't, because of the program they're in, the amnesty program. I don't think they have just complete free movement. I think they have free movement in their sector, but not,
Yeah,
they can't just
the
hop the
robots
train and go right.
Yeah, the
So
robots after him.
they had to skip and sneak on the train. So when these guys come and start checking passes, they're obviously they need to get the fuck out of Dodge. So they keep hopping train to train to the end, to the back, and then they're getting ready to jump off. These guys are a little menacing, and they're like, "Hey man, let's jump."
At first, I was like, "You're not actually going to jump off this speeding train, are you?"
And they absolutely do. Like, okay. And no scratch, by the way. Not a scratch on them. They're
perfectly safe.
Perfectly fine. That's the kind of stuff happens in like Rebels too, and it was like whatever. Okay, whatever. So here's we get a good picture of the what I think is a Star Destroyer, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a Star Destroyer. You can see the deck up there and
okay, yeah. And
quite a few of them actually.
Yeah. So this is kind of the boneyard.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go in to get this guy, find a lab. They find the lab. He starts packing up, supplies that he wants to take. They hear some noises, so they start getting the hell out of there. And then, oops, guess what? Run right into the cops.
Yep.
Cops are there, and they're like, hey, put them up.
That was really funny too when he heard the big crashing noise. He's like, "What's that?" "Oh, it's the ship settling," and he believed it. It's like, come on,
right?
It's like, yeah, you're done. And she's. Yeah. At first, I thought I was kind of confused because it's like, well, he immediately recognized her as working for Gideon, but now she's like not being arrested. So then we find out that she's trusted enough by the New Republic to run this undercover thing.
Right.
But again, while we know why she's doing this, she wanted to steal that technology and use him as the patsy. Why did the New Republic seem to think that he was good? Maybe it's because he gave that speech publicly that they thought he was going to do something and wanted to shadow him.
I don't know. Maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why they trust her so much.
Yeah.
Anybody that was previously working for Gideon, I think would be, you wouldn't. Well, I don't know. And maybe we'll learn later that this is kind of her last penance to earn her freedom, or what I mean, get out of this amnesty sector and program. But I guess we might see, but I don't know. I don't know if they're going to close, if this is it for this storyline now. It's just, this is what we get, or if they're going to come back to it. I hope they do. I hope they kind of tie some of the stuff up, but
yeah,
we'll see. But she's turncoat, obviously, on him. She was playing him the whole time. He gets arrested, and it's a re-education camp for him.
Yeah, like electroshock therapy, and this weird, creepy Moncal here is like, "Oh, don't worry, I went through the program too, and it's great." Like, Jesus,
program,
and again, how asinine this bureaucracy is. That let's not have an interrogation. Let's not listen to what this is about. We're just going to stupidly brainwash everybody to make them perfect people. It's like, no wonder the New Republic failed.
Yeah. You can tell right away that this is not the right way to do things.
Yeah,
and he's like, this is a mind flare. He's like, nah. The Mon's going, nah. No, it's not. It's gonna be fine. You're gonna feel much better.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. As soon as any government official starts telling you that things are gonna be okay, run for the hills.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, they strap this guy in, and he's gonna get mind flayed. He's gonna get re-educated.
Yeah.
And they turn up the dial.
To like total moment like from You Only Live Twice, where I'm going to turn the dial up for here for your back massage thing. Mr. Bond leaves, and the next guy's going to crank it up to 90.
Right. So that's what happens. So she's in with this other guy, Twi'lek, and they're having a little conversation. She's like, whatever. I'm going to stay, and I'm going to stay.
Yeah, he's my friend.
Friendly with him. He's still my friend, or whatever, some shit like that.
But this is the interesting thing when she cranks the thing up. It's like, I get how this is a convenient way to close off that loose end by just giving him a memory wipe, and it avoids the suspicion of a murder investigation. But since that wasn't what they were intending to do, I mean, obviously they're going to notice when the test is over that it went too far, and this guy here knows that she was left in that room alone, and he knows what setting to put it on. So I have a feeling because of the writing that they're not going to address it. It's just going to be this, he just got memory wipe, whatever. But realistically, she would have to deal with that problem as well.
Absolutely, because she was the only one in there.
Yeah, and that's another.
And everybody knows it. It's not, there's no way to, unless she kills this dude later on.
Yeah.
I thought it was weird. I'm like,
yeah, but that's why I perceive this as a closing of the, sealing off the loose ends. Like, Pershing is not fully on Gideon's side. He knows too much. So we got to just deal with this and close it off. And now plus he's gotten me what I need now to do whatever the next step is in Gideon's plan. Because it would be very random if this had nothing to do with the cold open of the episode. And it's like,
yeah,
to learn that Gideon escaped, who obviously, and the fact that there's an excessive amount of fighters coming to attack Bo-Katan, who has no power over anything, then clearly Gideon sent them to do that. And clearly this is closing the loose end of Gideon, and she works for him. So it's like,
I'll tell you what, if she's actually here at Gideon's behest, which is what's alluded to, great double agent, right?
Right.
Because not only did you have to get into this program, then you had to convince the New Republic that you were trustworthy enough to actually do this.
Right.
To allow, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that had to happen if he planted, or he meaning Moff Gideon, planted her here to do this. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's why I wonder. I'm not sure if he actually had to plant her there so much as if she used to work for him and she probably knows what the project was about and she knows what they need. She just needed somebody to get it, and this was kind of, maybe she's the one who initiated the plan to spy on. She set up the whole thing. Maybe.
Maybe.
But it's, again, we'll see where that's why when it comes to theories, it's like, again, rules of screenwriting. Everything in the episode, all the storylines are going to be directly related to each other in some way. We saw that in Andor, where Mon Mothma's trying to figure out how can I hide all this money with people constantly breathing down my neck, and we see what the money's being spent on with Andor and his heist and stuff like that. So here, it's like, okay, all these fighters attack Bo-Katan, and now this Gideon loyalist is setting this guy up who used to work with. So it's like, to me, that's not too much speculation. It seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it does to me too. There's obviously there's one or two ways you can go, but it's very minor, right? It doesn't really matter if she's acting on her own volition to keep the project secret, or if Moff Gideon sent her there to handle this part. Who knows? But those are minor differences.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, so she cranks that thing up, and he gets an extra double dose here.
I like the build up to that scene. It was really creepy too, because it's like, this is how batshit crazy the New Republic is, and just and it's just really eerie that they're doing this type of stuff,
Yeah, and what I didn't understand is, it seemed to me that they were gonna do a good job at mind wiping him in a non-harmful way. And then when she cranks it way the hell up, I'm like, I don't, are you killing him or I wasn't sure. And they don't tell you.
I perceived it as the way the guy said they weren't going to memory wipe him. They were just going to imbue positive thoughts and messages, trying to burn it out of his head. But he would still know who he is and everything that he's been doing.
Yeah.
But she's cranking it up so that he's not going to remember. So
it's just going to be,
because when he even told the scientist who was tying him up, he's like, "Oh, this is a memory wipe machine. I know it." And he's like, "No. It looks like that, and we repurposed it, but that's not what it is."
Right.
And she, of course, it is still that, because she just cranks it up to 11.
Just cranks it up to 11. All right. Well, so we don't know if she actually killed him, or if she just wiped his mind, or overloaded his brain with this whatever that is. I guess we'll see. I don't think he's dead. I think she did what she had to do to erase that part of his knowledge or his memories.
Yeah, because if he was dead, they probably would have done something simpler, like she would have pushed him off the train when they were leaving.
Right. She could have killed him any time after that, probably. So that and then we get a hard cut right to Din and Bo.
Yeah, arriving at
And-
the armorer's planet.
right? We get the nice shot of all three of them and that gorgeous ship behind them.
Hmm.
And so now we're back at the armorer's little hideout, and Din's like, "Hey, I'm pure. I'm purified.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought proof." So they come in to present their proof, or he comes in to present his proof to the armorer, and Bo says, "Yeah, I was there. I saved him, or I basically pulled him out of there." Gives her the tube to the armorer. The armorer pours it into her cauldron there, and it's shiny, obviously. Whatever happens, the reaction there with that water, with whatever that was in that cauldron, convinces her that that's the living water, or whatever the hell they call it. And now he's been what did she say? It wasn't rebirth, but you've been
redeemed.
Yeah,
and
you've been redeemed.
Bo-Katan if she had taken off her mask, and she's like, no, and then Din Djarin backs her up on being in the waters, and he's like, okay, well then you're redeemed from your house, and you're one of us, and they all kind of shaking hands and welcoming her, and all the animosity just kind of melts away.
Yeah, and then that's the end of the episode, which is cool because it's a way, I think, that the writers are going to start healing the divide between these clans,
right?
Because obviously I think the clans are going to have to come together to defeat Moff Gideon.
Yeah.
By the end of this season, so.
I also like how they made sure to end the episode with Bo-Katan looking at the mythosaur symbol that they have hanging on the wall.
Yeah.
To remind the audience that she's smart and that she's not going to tell them that, because of course they're not going to believe it.
Yeah.
At least not off the bat.
Right. So that's the episode. It was it's the most different episode we've gotten so far in any of the 3 seasons.
Very, again, Andor, and it's like, for a series where they know people are upset about how short the runtime of some of the Mandalorian stuff is, to spend this much time on that storyline in particular, I thought was surprising. Because on the one hand, I like that we're seeing what the New Republic is kind of like at the Capitol, but why are we seeing all that in a Mandalorian show? It's very much like how the Book of Boba Fett is, all the problems of that show aside, the fact that one of the biggest is that they just abandoned the protagonist to go have episodes of the Mandalorian spontaneously in the Book of Boba Fett. And that's kind of what they're doing here, not in terms of the characters from Andor, but the whole tone and structure of Andor is like in here now.
Yeah, and I hear people saying that they're like, oh, they saw the success of Andor and just threw that in here. I'm like, well, that's not how TV shows are like this are made. they don't I mean, if this was 3 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, long before Andor's success was.
This was already written and most likely in the can. But be that as it may, it did feel like that. They obviously wanted to tell this particular story in this particular way. It's weird, the kind of the placement of it. But all in all, like I said, I think I like the episode. And for me, I like spending, like you said, I like spending time on Coruscant. I really like all the palace intrigue and the politics and all that kind of stuff. I really enjoy all that kind of the power plays and seeing these disparate philosophies kind of come together and how they work. And you're seeing basically the philosophy of the Empire, the philosophy of the New Republic, and then the philosophy of the rebels who actually, of the rebellion, who actually made that come about or helped it come about, and how kind of different all 3 of those things are. And I just really like it. And I think that's why I think on the last episode I said, and I say this often, that I really love the prequel era of storytelling, because we got a lot more of that.
But the lore is just huge. I mean, the expansion of the lore was just insane, and just world building was massive for the prequels. And I was surprised that so many people had this really naive idea that just because the prequel movies were stale, that must mean you can't go back to the prequel. It's got nothing to do
Yeah.
with that, and that type of stupid thinking is what it permeated the sequel trilogy as well. It's the prequels didn't work because it's a different look and all. It's like, no, the prequels didn't work largely because they were very wooden and very just in all sort from top to bottom, and those were projects that he made because Lucas was continuing the digital cinema revolution, and he was using those films as lab rats for that, which is why I can't harp on them too hard in terms of the CG, particularly in episode 2, because that's eventually what led them to win their Oscar just the year after with their Pirates of the Caribbean sequel, and all that CG that they're using today. But that's what happens when you're making movies more so for the CG-ness involving the business rather than really focusing on it. But that has nothing to do with the design and the aesthetic and the lore and the world building of that era. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, the storytelling is beautiful. It's all and the lore in that era is awesome. It's just for me it's the best. It's the best we've gotten so far.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, if you go back, there's some really good stuff in the Old Republic too. But
that's way back though.
Yeah, but that's way back.
I think we'll get there eventually, but
yeah, hopefully.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think it'll be inevitable at some point. I think once the Mandalorian cross-universe thing is over with, that they're going to go in another direction. It just seems like that would be the way to go.
It'd be great. I'd love to see them go back and do the Old Republic, not the High Republic, but the Old Republic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd take the movies, but I think actually you can tell a Game of Thrones or style, series on Disney Plus, a la Andor, with the Old Republic and tell the entire story, and in several seasons. You could do 7 seasons of that easily.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Anyways, so
this series is supposed to be 7 seasons if the initial rumors are to be believed.
Yeah, short seasons though, that kind of bugs me. That still bugs me,
Yeah, because again, with only 8 episodes per season, to have spent this much time on the Pershing story, which seems pretty open and shut, it's like all you needed to do was establish the amnesty program.
Yeah,
what he's doing there, and that this girl plays him, and it didn't need to take 40 minutes to do that.
No, you could have
elaborated
that way down.
Yeah, you could have cut that down and expanded the world some more. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, they were trying to show them the mundane aspect of his life, I think, and then that's why a couple of things repeated. You just go, this is kind of what's happening, and I'm trying to do this, and I'm stuck here, and I get it, but I don't know that you needed it in an 8 episode season.
Right.
You're right. I don't know that we could have done it quick and got the same result in half the time. But that aside, I like the episode. I'm still on board. I'll watch these episodes even if they're horrible. I watched Book of Boba Fett and it was horrible.
You got a subscription, just watch it. It's live action, just see it.
Right. I also, I didn't care that much for Obi-Wan Kenobi either. I watched every episode of that as well. So I will, I'll keep watching as I want to do, and we'll keep talking about it as long as people want to hear from us.
Oh yeah, for sure. I am curious though as to where next week is going to go. Like, are we going to continue to follow her, or are we going to go back to Din and Bo-Katan? Because currently there's no storyline remaining for Din because he's been redeemed.
Right.
Kid, and the armor accepts the fact that they're a clan of 2, and she accepts the fact that he did his job at getting the kid where he needed to be, and he's back, and he already explained that to her. And so Bo-Katan, until she says something about what happened, I feel that maybe next week we'll be seeing Gideon, and maybe he will be the one to really get things going again, to bring Mando back into the fold.
Yeah, because of the nature of this, this old kind of Western, lone wolf and cub type of show. You're the main character that has to have a quest, and so far he's had a quest, several, and but now he's completed all of the quests he's been given.
Yeah, he's reached the end game of that quest. Get the kid to the parent and redeem and all that kind of thing. Yeah. And I was kind of surprised because at the end of the first season, when she's like, or in the second season, actually it was the Book of Boba Fett, where she's like, you need to go redeem yourself on Mandalore. I thought that was going to be the whole storyline of season 3, because we're going to see how crazy whatever's going on Mandalore. And so seeing the revelation that it's just a ghost town and that it was actually pretty easy, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I admit I am surprised that they just dropped the news that Gideon escaped as like a side conversation rather than it's like, I hope they have a good reason for that rather than, unless maybe next week will be a flashback and we'll get to see it. Who knows? But that is I thought that was an odd decision.
But it seems to me that after these 3 episodes, we basically wrapped up, like you said. I thought the same thing. I thought his redemption was going to be the arc of the season. Obviously, it's not. It's the arc of basically the first act, right, of the season. So they may pivot hard, and who knows where they're going to go.
Yeah, because technically they don't have to beat Gideon by the end of the season. This could be because back in September 2020 when he was doing press for the season 2. Giancarlo Esposito said he already knew, but way back then, that they'd already written through the first 4 seasons, which they probably wouldn't have shared with him if he's not going to be in it all the way. And you usually don't want that. And then they probably would have preferred him not to say that back then. But the fact that he did tells us that he's probably going to be around for that as well. And so, because I think he's a great character that you could use for have him be the main antagonist for the majority of the series. Why not? Then again, I have no idea what the end game plan is. I mean, I figure at some point it's going to cross over with the Thrawn thing, but that's all going to hinge on Ahsoka as well in terms of what that's going to be about. So just right now, it just feels like
is Thrawn back? Is Thrawn back from the outer reaches? I don't know.
It just feels a bit kind of humdrum type of thing where, okay, we went to do this side quest to redeem himself, and that was a lot easier than we thought it was going to be.
Right.
I guess now the villain, he's going to be the one to pivot.
So I'm hoping that, over next week's episode and episode 4 and 5, that we start getting into the thrust of, where this season's going, because I have no idea right now.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I mean, I think from what I gathered was, it was going to be getting the clans, the Mandalorians, back together to fight off Moff Gideon coming for the Darksaber, right?
Yeah,
coming for in Bo-Katan. But I mean, I didn't expect the quest to end so soon in the season, and so I'm just kind of at a loss at where they're going, and kind of that's a good thing. I mean, I don't want to completely know the whole thing up front,
right.
But so I'm happy to be surprised. But I think we'll start getting into the thrust of the season. It looks like we're going to get into act 2 here, and then we'll like you said, it's only 4 episodes. After next week, we're halfway through.
Yeah,
which is
crazy to think, because it's like it doesn't feel like. I mean, it is a bit of a change from your typical episodic things. Episode 1 was kind of like filler. Episode 2 is admittedly, while good and had a lot of great elements that we liked, it did feel almost a bit anticlimactic to the setup of the big quest to Mandalore type thing, which in a sense has been building since the beginning of season 1. Really, he's eventually Mandalorian has to go back to Mandalore, and now in the 3rd episode we realize, okay, he's finished with his quest, and now this is a pivot. Like, the villain is probably going to be the one to reignite things, which is odd that it's happening here. But again, this series is already disjointed anyway. The fact that they've named these first 3 episodes chapters 17, 18, and 19 is like, you can't go from chapter 16 of Luke Skywalker taking Grogu and then cut to chapter 17 and know what the hell's going on, which is sloppy craftsmanship there. So
that was a mistake. But in my opinion, the whole book of Boba Fett was a mistake.
Yeah, I agree. The bad outweighs any of the good by a long mile.
Yeah. So no comments tonight. Chat's quiet. I know this was kind of a last minute thing for Kat and I. We just decided to go tonight. We usually do this on Friday. If we can, in the going forward, we might stay with Wednesday if it works for Kat. I'm not sure if it does, but
we'll see.
But we'll see. So kind of look out for us. like, subscribe, share this video with your friends, obviously, and hit the bell so you can get notified when we do go live. Usually, we try to get the links on YouTube on the channel up, uh, you know, a day or two before the show. This one obviously is a few hours before the show, but at least it'll be a few hours. You get a little bit of notice.
Hmm.
We won't just go live. I mean, sometimes we do, but we'll try to keep it as regular as we can.
Mhm.
But Wednesday, I think I like because everything's fresh, and you don't have a lot of too much. You only have about, like Kat said, about 12 hours of theory instead of like 48 or 72 hours of people speculating all over the internet.
Yeah.
So it's nice to get to it when it's fresh. Anyways, unless you have anything else, I think we can do our sign off and call it a night, Kat.
Yeah, I think that's it. Pretty much covered it. That's fun.
Do you want to plug anything?
Scotty and I got our Batman Showcase Cows and Crusaders is going to return with a long Halloween next Tuesday at 6, and we're going to be joined by Ernesto and maybe Jill. I'm not sure yet. I got my Star Wars show every second and fourth Sunday of the month at the Virtual Cantina Network, live streaming at 8 a.m. Pacific, and that's about all I got going on the internet right now.
Yeah, last night's episode was the
Lego
Batman movie, which was awesome. So check that out. That's up on the channel right now. Tomorrow I think we're gonna do Set to Stun. We're gonna do Picard season 3, episode 4 or 5, I think it is. But there has been talk about taking this week off and doing a In the Loop Quantum Leap retrospective that Jill and Scotty do. So check the channel for that. I'm not 100% which one's going to go live. So it may be Set to Stun, Picard, but it may be In the Loop. Either one will be at the same time tomorrow night. And other than that, I think that's it. So for Catherine, I am Steve Foley. Have a great night, everybody.